Hey guys, Miss Raymond here today to talk about poetry some more. We're going to talk about acrostic and other free verse poems. All right, so let's talk about what is free verse. A free verse poem does not use rhyme or patterns. They vary in length of lines and stanzas, subject matter. Some poets feel that it allows them more opportunities to express themselves because it's less structured. They don't have to follow a certain pattern. Free verse contains sounds that are more natural in everyday speech. Here's an example of a poem called Revenge. When I find out who took the last cookie out of the jar and left me a bunch of stale old messy crumbs, I'm going to take me a handful and crumb up someone's bed. So it can be silly, it can be serious. Here's another one, example of free verse, Little Shelter Cat by Kelly Roper. I walked into the shelter and looked around. Out of all the homeless kitties, you stood out like a beacon. I picked you up and you purred and snuggled sweetly in my arms. It was like we had always known each other, always been together. I filled out the form, made the donation, and took you home. You're a little shelter cat no more. You're mine. All right, so acrostic is a type of free verse poem. In an acrostic poem, usually the first letter of each line is read down the page and it spells the subject of the poem. They don't generally rhyme. So here's an example: leaf, a loose brown parachute escaping and floating on puffs of air. Here's another example of an acrostic poem: Spring. So many flowers are blooming. Petite little squirrels come out to play. Really big bears awake from their slumbers. Imaginative children enjoy a walk with their friends. No tree is left standing without any leaves. So go ahead, jump for joy, because spring is here. All right, concrete poem is also another type of poem that would be considered free verse, and that it doesn't rhyme, doesn't have rhythm. It's often called or referred to as shape poem because it's written in the shape of its subject. The way the words are arranged is as important as what the words themselves actually mean. So they generally don't rhyme either. Rain is rainbows, rainbows, rainbows. Black boots and big puddles, puddles, puddles. Slushy streets and soaked trees, trees, trees. Wildflowers and wide paths. Bumblebees, bumblebees, books of color. There's another one, concrete cat. And you can see the shape of the cat and it describes that part of the cat: ear, eye, whisker, mouth, dish, paw, stripes, tail, mouse, and litter box. Here is a famous one. And this comes from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And this is called The Mouse Tale. Mine is a long and a sad tale, said the mouse, turning to Alice and sighing. It is a long tale, certainly, said Alice, looking down with wonder at the mouse's tail. But why do you call it sad? She kept on puzzling about it while the mouse was speaking, so that her idea of the tale was something like this. Fury said to a mouse that he met in the house, let us both go to law. I will persecute you. Come, I'll take no denial. We must have a trial, for really this morning I've nothing to do, said the mouse to the cur. Such a trial, dear sir, with no jury or judge, would be wasting breath. I'll be judge, I'll be jury, said cunning old Fury. I'll try the whole cause and condemn you to death. All right, so that one happens to be about animals. All right, we're going to listen to Carl Sandburg read his free verse poem, Fog, and this is a very short poem.
The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over city and harbor on silent haunches, and then moves on. The fog.
All right, and here are a few questions just about what we've talked about. So if you could just grab a piece of paper and pencil, all you need to do is write down A or B. All right, so question 1, free verse poems use rhyme and rhythm. A is true, B is false. Question 2, concrete poetry is poetry in which the words form shapes which illustrate the poem subject as a picture. A is true, B is false. Question 3, an acrostic poem is a poem where certain letters in each line spell out a word or phrase. A is true, B is false. And then question number 4, in the poem Fog by Carl Sandburg is an example of free verse because A, he uses no rhyming words, or B, the poet compares fog to a cat. All right, so here are our answers. All right, so number 1 was B, false. Free verse poems use rhythm and rhyme. That is false. Number 2, concrete poetry is poetry in which the words form shapes which illustrate the poem's subject as a picture. And that was true, A, true. And let's see, for number 3, an acrostic poem is a poem where certain letters in each line spell out a word or phrase. Again, that was A, true. And number 4, the poem Fog by Carl Sandburg is an example of free verse because, again, A, he uses no rhyming words. All right, so hopefully you learned something more about poetry today, and I will talk to you later.